A girl by the name of Amy attended a Midwestern Bible Institute college. There at that college was a man named Donald Phillips. There he was an administrator, a teacher, a pastor, and he loved what he did. Now, Amy, as a college student, everyone said she came off nice, respectful, kind to everyone, the staff, other students. Not a thing wrong with Amy that they could see. However, no one realized that behind Amy's smile was something a bit more dark, disturbing. It was later on after the fact that Donald learned that before Amy came to that college, she actually was in a mental institute. And it was there that apparently Amy had some encounters with occult activity. Now, Amy was living in a college apartment with neighboring students, and all was well at the start. But shortly after she moved in, really weird things began to happen. Other neighboring students began to report things that were of the supernatural, you could say. For instance, there were reports from students that kitchenware was just beginning to float up into the air and stay midair. Several reports of this, not just kitchenware, other objects as well. And in the beginning, staff didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to think of it. They didn't see it occur, but yet these reports were coming in and they were like, okay, how do we handle this? And while there were never any injuries or anything like that, still safety was obviously a concern. So Donald and two of his co-workers by the name of Roger and Jared, they decided to go over and investigate. Once they were at Amy's apartment, they made an appointment to go, come talk to her, and she was fine with that. She invited them in, they sat down, and at first the conversation was nice, pleasant. They talked about schoolwork and jobs and just all sorts of your everyday chit-chat. It was such a relaxed conversation, but just as they were about to transition over to what they had come there for, something odd started to happen. Amy's eyes began to glaze over. She then rolled off the couch and her body began just contorting and going into all these weird positions that just wasn't very natural. Now, these three men, they had strong faith in Jesus, so they weren't scared. They remained calm. And Donald says one particular verse came to his mind right as this was occurring, and it was Ephesians 6:12, which states, "For we struggle not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces and of evil in heavenly realms." As this verse is going through Donald's mind, there is now anger behind those eyes of Amy. She begins to hiss and just howl and just all sorts of, angry voices coming from her mouth. She then just begins spewing out hate at the three men. She was even foaming at the mouth. And then it progressed into her saying all these weird, odd names and words that most people wouldn't know. But the three men, they knew enough to know that those words coming out of her mouth, they sounded of the demonic realm. So the three men immediately go to praying to Jesus, calling down the name of Jesus. However, this demonic force or spirit, it just would not let go of Amy. So the men decide to carefully and gently, slowly start getting nearer to Amy. They want to try to help even further, pray, lay hands if they can, whatever they need to do, right? But in the process, Roger gets a little too close and she kicks him, we'll just say, in a sensitive spot. Nonetheless, they kept praying and doing what they needed to do. And eventually, Amy began to calm down because you see, when calling on Jesus, the power of Jesus' name is greater than any other. Doesn't matter. It's greater, always greater. And that was what is so amazing about this. Amy went through deliverance, and that was on a Saturday. She got saved. She invited Jesus in her heart. And wouldn't you know, the very next day, Sunday morning, she was at church amongst her peers and the staff. It was amazing. Donald said that morning at church, she looked like a completely different person. There was peace and liberation in her face, in her smile. And most students just sat there just staring at her in awe of the change that they were seeing. It was almost like she was glowing and radiant, many of the students said. That day, all her peers, a lot of staff, they hugged, they encouraged Amy, and it was just a great, great time. Amy was finally restored to her right mind because she now knew Jesus. And at the end of this story, I like how they put it. I always like a quote or something that these stories that just, it's impactful. And at the end of this one, he said, Jesus, he conquered all, and he is still conquering all to this day. Anytime somebody gets deliverance, set free, comes to know God, that in my book is a miracle. And that's why I do these stories that involve these subjects, because that's very much a miracle and beautiful, beautiful testimony. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to see you guys for the next one.